TimeXtender has received some great new updates lately that help you orchestrate end-to-end executions and monitor them directly from any web browser. Let me show you how to set it up. A common problem in BI and analytics reporting is a user will come into the report and find out it didn't get refreshed last night. So we come in, we'll check our semantic model, we'll notice it's been refreshed, we'll hit refresh, but nothing really happens. And it's because there was an update that didn't happen somewhere early on in the data pipeline. And TimeXtender's latest process orchestration product is a great solution for that. If you don't already have an Exmon account, the first thing that you're going to want to do is sign into the TimeXtender portal at app.timextender.com and click Unlock Exmon. Now, once you get logged into the Exmon portal, you'll notice this window, and up here in the top right under your username, you can download Exmon DG Desktop. And that's what we're going to be using today to set up our process orchestration. Now, let's get started in TimeXtender. I have my operational data exchange here. I'm loading these data sources into a Fabric Lakehouse, a new functionality that we just released a couple months ago with the ODX on Fabric. You can come into the Fabric interface here. We can just click on the Lakehouse, and it just loads your data right away. You can also use the SQL Analytics endpoint to just use SQL and start querying that data with SQL. And I'm going to write a new SQL query. So we'll just count rows here in this table, and you can see easy to query. It's all in the web. So let's go back to TimeXtender. Here I have a data warehouse loading into an Azure SQL database, and then finally I'm loading my semantic model into a Power BI premium dataset. Oftentimes you'll run into a scenario where you'd want to process the data all the way from the source to refresh a single model. And you can do that now in TimeXtender purely using our integrated metadata. So let me show you how to set up that end-to-end execution. First thing that you're going to want to do is set up an execution package for your semantic model. So under your semantic model, double click on executions, right click and create a package. We're going to call this sales. And you just take your model and go ahead and drag and drop that right into include steps. The semantic models only execute in a single thread, so you can leave this at 1. And the managed execution, again, there's only one thread, so it doesn't really matter here. So we go ahead and click OK. It's going to say deployment is needed as is usual. My model's already deployed, so I'm going to right click on the model and save the instance as a deployed version. Now I can right click on my execution package, and here's the new feature here, generate end-to-end tasks and packages. We'll go ahead and click that. You'll notice a couple things got created here. You'll see a new perspective here in my data warehouse and a new task here in my ODX. One thing that you want to be sure is that you need to have that on-demand setting turned off to have this task get created. If the on-demand setting is turned on, this will still work. You just won't be able to create a job for your ODX task and see that in Exmon, like I'm going to show you here in just a minute. So in order to have that automatic task get created, you have to make sure that your on-demand execution is turned off. So another thing that got created which you don't see here yet is an execution package for my data warehouse. So I'll open that up. You see this execution package here that got created. And in here, you have this perspective that's included. One thing you are going to want to do is to increase the threads here to make sure that this is running as efficiently as possible. Go ahead and click OK. And again, it's going to say deployment is needed. So I'm going to go ahead and save my data warehouse now as a deployed version. Now, after all these tasks are created and you've saved, you want to go ahead and refresh your instances. That's going to ensure that everything is synced to the instances in the cloud and that the TimeXtender portal knows about the jobs that it can create based on these new packages. Now we go to jobs and go ahead and add a job. I'm going to call this ODX sales. And here in my Fabric Lakehouse ODX, you see that auto sales that's been created there. And just know that when you do this process, it'll create tasks for every data source that is feeding that model. So you'll want to include more than one task in here if you have more than one data source that's feeding a model. Go ahead and click next. I'm not going to schedule this here in TimeXtender because we're going to go ahead and handle the scheduling in Exmon. Now let's look at my MDW. I'm going to go ahead and just add in my Azure SQL Database Data Warehouse auto package that was created, and then my Power BI sales model. That's the sales model right here under my semantic model. So click Add and click OK. In order to do this next step, we do need the API key from the TimeXtender portal. So let's go ahead and open the TimeXtender portal again. Go to Admin, Security and Permissions. I'll go ahead and create a new API key. We're just going to call this Exmon DG3, generate that key, copy that key, and close the window. Now I can go into Exmon DG Desktop. Once you have Exmon open, you want to create a data provider. So you expand data providers here, right click, go to new and new data provider. I'm going to call this JTTX jobs. You can select the system. So I'm using the system called JT. What that does is it just groups all of your items here together under the same area. So you can think of it like a folder or a workspace. Data source type, you can change your data source type. In this case, our data source is going to be TimeXtender SaaS. So we'll click on TimeXtender SaaS. Okay. And then this is where you paste your API key that we just created from the portal. So paste in that API key, test the connection, and we're connected successfully. So we have that data source created. Let's go ahead and save that. Once you've created your data providers, you want to create packages. So in Exmon process orchestration, you can orchestrate all different types of packages. Now, the free version of Exmon that comes with your TimeXtender SaaS license, you're only going to be able to orchestrate TimeXtender SaaS packages. But just know that if you do purchase the full Exmon process orchestration, you're able to orchestrate all types of tasks, which can be extremely powerful, especially when you start doing things like PowerShell, Azure Functions. You can execute Python, Azure Data Factory, all kinds of stuff. So it can get quite powerful. So I'm going to click on TimeXtender SaaS, and we're going to call this ODX Sales. Okay. Select my data provider. This is, again, JTTX Jobs. That's the one I just created there. This is what's connecting to my API. And then I'll go ahead and hit refresh. This is going to show me all the jobs that I have available. So these are the jobs I just created. I'm going to start with ODX Sales and set that up. And one of the really nice things that you can do here in Exmon is you can set up emails whenever these packages finish, and you can also set up retries. So if there's a failure, you can set up a retry and define the number of seconds that you want it to retry in, and then for how long you actually wanted to time out. So that's a really nice feature there. Let's go ahead and create packages for our other jobs, data warehouse, sales. TTX jobs, again, we want to refresh that and click MDW sales. So that's going to be my data warehouse. I'll go ahead and save that one. And again, my last package here for my semantic model, I'll name this Power BI sales and click that Power BI sales. Go ahead and save that one. All right, so now that we have our packages set up, the next thing that we want to do here is we can look at different emails that you can send out. So this being my last package in a set of multiple packages, on any of these, you can set up an email on failure or email on completion, or both. And you just select your name from here. It already knows your email because that's what you've signed up with, and it'll send you a nice email anytime this is finished. Or if you want to see failures, you can set that up. So you get nice emails on completion or failure for any of these packages. Now, the next thing we want to do after we've created the packages is to create a process. Now, a process, what that does is that orchestrates multiple packages in a sequence. So I'm going to call this my update sales. We have our packages here on the right. We're going to start by creating a step. So I'm going to say step 1 is going to be to update my ODX sales. Step 2, going to be updating my data warehouse sales. And step 3 is going to be updating my Power BI sales. So what this does is it allows you to orchestrate a lot of complex processes because this will happen in a sequence, this step. So all of these steps happen in a sequence. And then if you want to set up multiple things to run in parallel, you can do that, or you can set this to a sequence. In this case, I just have a package under each step. So you can set them up just like this. So once you have your process set up, of course, you want to save that. The next thing we're going to want to do is create a process map. So right click here on process maps and click new process map. And I'm just going to call this again, date sales. That'll create a new blank process map for us. You can see this. There's 2 buttons here you want to be aware of. There's items and there's background. So background is where you do your design. You design your process map. Items is where you actually add in your packages. The first thing that you want to do here is to link your process map with a process. In this menu in the bottom right, you choose your process. I'm going to select update sales. And then once I have that, let's go ahead and design our background. I have some recent images that I can use. So I have my architecture there. Go ahead and put my logo. And then once I have that done, I can go to items and we can drag in our different packages here. So I'm going to drag in ODX sales right here, data warehouse sales there, and then Power BI sales here. Let me go ahead and save that. Now, once you've saved all your changes, we've made a lot of different changes here. We need to deploy those changes. You can deploy your individual objects on the menu here, or you can deploy all the objects that we just created using this button right here, deploy. So let's go ahead and click deploy, click check all, and then let's deploy all of those objects. Okay, everything looks deployed. Let's go ahead and open a web browser, and we can go back to TimeXtender.exmon.com, or in this case, your company name is going to be right in here. That's the name of your organization. And then go ahead and click on Map. And this should show you the map that you just created. You might need to change your environment or possibly change your system to make sure it's going to pull up the map that you just created. So this is the option that I told you. You have to link your process to your process map in order to get this option up here to click Run. I'm going to go ahead and run this process so we can see what that looks like. You can see all the different steps separated out here. I'm going to go ahead and select all of them and go ahead and hit Start. Now you can see when these are shaking, that means a new item has just started. So everything started and this one is currently running. We can see that visually here. Again, this is just a really nice way for business users to see when a process is running, when their data warehouse is being updated. And based on historical executions, it actually gives you an ETA as well, which is really nice because it looks at the previous executions, it creates an average, and then it's going to tell you roughly when this is planned to be completed. Of course, this is assuming that it's the same data each time. If you're adding a bunch of new data, it's possible that it could take longer, but these ETAs are really nice from a business perspective. While this is running, let's go back into Exmon DG Desktop, and we can create a schedule. So right here under Schedule Groups, go ahead and right-click, click New, and click on a Schedule Group. And I'm going to call this JT's Schedule. And here we have our schedule, and we can go ahead and schedule a single package to run, or we can schedule an entire process. In this case, of course, I want my entire process to update sales to run on a regular basis. So I can just drag that in, and you can see here, it can get quite complex just like before. We can add different groups, run multiple things in parallel, and schedule them all. So if you have a lot of different things you want to update, you can schedule those to run in parallel here. Now, down here in the schedule, this is where you're going to find how often you want these to run. You can say, repeat every 15 minutes or daily. In this case, let's run it every day at 7 a.m. You want to save that. And once that's saved, this will run on that given schedule and it'll run my entire process. Let me show you how you can add users. So once you get this set up, of course, you're going to want to allow some business users that are responsible for using these BI reports to be able to see when things are being updated. So you can go here to users and groups. You can add groups and add users pretty easily. And then of course, you can give them access to your process map. So let's navigate back to our process map and see how our process is going. Looks like we encountered an error. I did want to show this. This is a nice visual here. We get this red. We can see that there's an error. Business users can see, hey, that's why your data hasn't been updated because there was an error that was encountered. You can go through, you can see info, you can get information on that error and see what happened. But again, the other nice thing is you do get this nice email. So I wanted to pull that up, show what these notifications look like. Quite detailed. Get the big red bar. Again, the visuals are pretty nice here for business consumers. You can see where the error occurred and what step in the process. And you get the full error notes, both in the text of the email, but also as an attachment. Let's go back to our process map and we can click Run and we can click Start Process from the first failure in the last execution. So we'll select all of these and this will allow me to restart that process. Now you can see these started shaking because it's resuming from where the last failure occurred. So I was able to restart that execution from this point. So that's, again, a really nice feature that from this interface, you can just restart that execution based on the last failure. And if I choose within Exmon DG, we can actually set up retry. So we could have had this retry automatically if we wanted to. And that's in the packages in my data warehouse sales, which is the one that failed. We can have retries on failure, and I could have just set that up myself here, so it would have just retried on its own. So we'll go ahead and let that run. Now it looks like my process has completed successfully. You can click in here, you can see history, we can rerun, we can disable certain tasks, last executions from here. If you open up history, it gives you a really nice interface. So you can see historical execution. So there's not a lot of data right now, but over time, if this is running every day, we can see how that time is changing over time, which again, is just really nice for data quality, being able to see how long my processes are taking. Yeah, and that's it for setting up end-to-end executions with Exmon. Thanks for watching.